Are you a concerned citizen who is passionate about agriculture? Do you live around the farming or fishing community where there are innovations that need to be supported? Are there farming issues but no one comes to your assistance? Then you are welcome to add your voice to the voices of other farmers on Agric Today. How to send video. 1. With a good camera, take 2 minutes maximum of clear documentary video in your community language. 2. Add your name, the town, date and time of your reportage, and if possible, summarized in English. 3. Send it to Akuafotvgh through the WhatsApp line 02666 or our Facebook page, Akuafotvgh GH. Stay tuned to Akuafotvgh on Agric Today.
Have you thought of having your #1 trusted entertainment channel on your mobile phone? Then get DFM on your Play Store and MyTuner on your iPhones. Don't forget to read.
DFM, your #1 trusted entertainment channel.
Well, welcome to the closing plenary of today's Grow Africa Summit. We are excited to be here with leaders from across the continent, with heads of state who have committed themselves dramatically to leadership in agriculture and food security, in nutrition, and efforts to bring business investment, public-private partnership, and a real focus on poverty. As you've heard all day and as you've been discussing, and I want to start by making sure everyone has a chance to identify with and take with them the Grow Africa report.
And before this time, as far as Nigeria is the highest importer of rice all over the world. Rice, fish, and sugar, our import bills are quite high. And this is create the environment that will be self-sustainable. That's why I said that for rice, by 2015-2016, we should be able to produce enough rice for our local consumption. And that will help us in terms of foreign earnings significantly. But the key thing is not just producing enough rice or enough food for our local consumption, but also creating jobs along the value chain. And not just for Nigeria, also for maybe especially the neighboring countries, the ECOWAS sub-region. Because even as we are talking now, a number of commercial farmers, quite a number of their workers who are working in technical areas and farm managers come from other West African countries. So because there is huge opportunities in agriculture, and any government that really creates the environment that attracts the businessmen and women to invest in agriculture automatically will create a lot of jobs for young men. Of course, the food security will be there, the issues of nutrition will be it. But it goes even beyond achieving the MDG goal. It helps you so much in creating jobs. In terms of human empowerment, too, is key, because before this time, in fact, just 2 years ago, total commercial banks lending to agriculture in Nigeria was about 0.6, 0.7% for agriculture, for commercial banks, not the specialized bank. Of these loans that go into agriculture should be dedicated for women in the agro-allied industries, whether the processing or the farming. That helps the women. It creates this financial inclusion. In terms of the fertilizer and other inputs, We now use the electronic wallet, where you use your cell phone to access seeds, access fertilizer, and of course, most of the seeds we give free, especially the improved seeds we have to give free to farmers, because we're encouraging young people. And so many young men, for you listen to the Minister of Agriculture, he must have spoken about the non-agropreneurs, young men and women who now want to go into agriculture. Them are doing wonderfully well in agriculture, because they have seen that agric is no longer being taken as a rural development. It's not just the kind of farming that our parents do, but a major business that you now interact and even export their products. So it's quite exciting in Nigeria. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It is exciting in Nigeria, and we've spent a good part of today learning about those wonderful examples, real signs of success, quickly create jobs, and begin the transformation in an effective way. And we just thank you for your leadership and for hosting this session today. Next, I'd like to turn to Your Excellency, President Jakaya Kikwete of Tanzania. President Kikwete, you, a number of years ago, said, were in a conversation with, and you said, you know, some people will look at this and be concerned and will want to go slowly, but we need to do everything we can quickly and then show that we're reaching and benefiting smallholder farmers, women, children who otherwise wouldn't have enough to eat. And your leadership with Kilimo Kwanza in Tanzania has served as an example for leaders like President Obama. Could you describe your assessment of our progress and your advice as we...
We're really concerned about the fact that Africa is being considered as a basket case. Hunger is a perennial problem. But also, there is poverty, widespread poverty on the African continent. But some of us thought that we can deal with the problem of hunger, we can deal with the problem of poverty through agricultural transformation. 70% of our people live in rural areas. They depend on agriculture for their livelihood. When you talk about hunger, it is about agriculture producing enough food. But Africa's agriculture is backward agriculture. Low productivity, low production. So, therefore, Africa's agriculture is transformed that agriculture through innovation that are technical, technological, because when we use the traditional, the hand hoe, low yielding seeds, very little use of fertilizer, the average that will progress in the Netherlands is 577 kilos per hectare. When we lose a lot of crops through pests and diseases. So we saw technological involvement here is to leverage modern science and technology to develop our agriculture. But of course, there are issues of management. The agriculture to agriculture, particularly the smallholder farmers, because predominantly Africa's agriculture is in the hands of smallholder farmers. They lack skills, they don't have the finances, they need the inputs, they can't get the inputs. So at the World Economic Forum, in our discussions with Professor Klaus and people in the WEF, we said our wish is to see agriculture. Fortunately, this wish was granted. Besides the meetings that are taking place at Mlimani City, but we had sideline meetings with a few people, and we put our minds together. We agreed on coming up with and what can be done, the EBCs. Then at the Davos WEF Summit, we presented that blueprint. It was ready. So our thinking was, you have the smallholder farmer who needs to be supported to transform his or her agriculture. As Winnie said, the peasant also is an investor, because when we talk of private sector, after of agriculture in Africa is in the hands of the private sector, because the peasant himself is a private investor. But we're talking of the bigger players in the private sector. We want to involve them, let them establish farms, but also support the agricultural sector, support the peasant farmers, get the inputs that they need, get the skills, get the technology that they need, but also buy from the farmers, establish the market where the farmers can buy. And then, of course, we looked at the role of government, would enable the smallholder farmers to grow, but governments have friends, the donor community, they also have a role to play. Of course, it started as a small thing, but later it grew into a big thing. There was a bogey thrown that it is land grabbing, that now Africa is now selling land to the large-scale producers. But I think with time now it has proven that that's not true. That the smallholder farmer is very much at the center of the focus. The private sector is now playing a very active role. The donors now are also playing a very active role. That we are saying in the Camp David meeting, the Camp David GA Summit was a turning point, because prior to that, there was donors' interest in agriculture was waning. Even the World Bank had reduced its support from 20 billion to 3 billion. So from that, at the Camp David meeting, that's where everybody else now came back on stream. So we are now seeing greater involvement of the donors. We are now seeing greater involvement of the private sector, both local and foreign. And at the meeting at the Leadership Council meeting, we got good numbers there. In the report now is 7 billion investments and commitments. But we are seeing now dividends. Take the case of Tanzania. Now, last harvest, we were 118% food self-sufficiency. We are going to get a big harvest this year. Our biggest challenge now is storage. We've been asking for people now to come and buy from our warehouses so that we can. Really, we have, the Grow Africa has been a tremendous initiative for our continent. We are seeing progress now on the agricultural front. Soon, I think, the increased production in the agricultural sector, there is going to be increased income to the farmers. We'll also be able to reduce poverty significantly if there is going to be success in the agricultural sector. So what I can say is, let's stay the course. Let's continue to support the African farmers, smallholder farmers. Let there be more robust involvement of the private sector, large-scale production, but also support to the smallholder farmers. Let's see greater support from African governments. They have a role, a historic mission.
Comments today and your advice earlier to more carefully measure the actual impacts for women, for women's incomes and empowerment, and what this means for real poverty reduction. I'd also highlight, on behalf of the Camp David team and President Obama, he really believes that this is the path forward to end in its passion for this subject and for the opportunity to partner with so many of you in this room today. Next, I'll turn to President Paul Kagame, Your Excellency, from Rwanda. And I would highlight, Mr. President, that perhaps you could describe to us, you've been very effective in the last several years of attracting more than $500 million, which, relatively speaking, you know, that is a difficult task when you started. What has been your secret for success? And based on your personal commitment, what is your advice to this group as we go forward and say, okay, looks like this is working really well. How do we take this to the next level?
Well, thank you, Raj, and thank you also through you to your government and the President for bringing together the private sector, African leaders, and also within the World Economic Forum to focus on this real issue, because I think the importance of agriculture cannot be overstated. The importance